In today's lecture, we are talking about BMW 3 Series version F30, which was on the market since 2011 and up to 2019. Doing a simple math, we might notice that now these cars are from 3 to 10 years old. What means that it's time for them to go secondary market and become a clients of unofficial service stations. Today we'll see what is about to buy, own, and repair this car. Taking into account that the approximate resource of the engine and the transmission, or in other words, the car resource itself, is around 200-300,000 of kilometers. So we will talk about the car life before this mileage. Outside of it, it's quite impossible to do any predictions. Let's get started with the heart, the engines. First, let's highlight that all of the available options are made in a modern way architecture with direct fuel injection and lightweight timing chains. So many described issues will be caused just by this architecture itself. Splitting the options to groups, the first one would be petrol 3-cylinder inline engine group, represented with the only one option, B38. The only main problem of this engine is that the turbine cooling and intake manifold are made in one housing, and that leads to manifold cracks on overheat and coolant leakages in this case. The second most common issue is a floating idle caused by the coking of input valves, which is a common problem for engines with direct injection. Also, there are some rare problems with systems like Vanos and absorber valve, and surprisingly, oil filter service on this engine could make you some trouble. The filter could fall apart and it will be really hard to extract its remains from the engine. Getting to the next group, we'll reach 4 inline cylinder petrol engines, and there are 3 of them. First, F30, and to be honest, this engine is just a piece of junk. Under 100,000 of kilometers, there are high risk that you will get into troubles with the fuel injectors, fuel injection pump, chain, vanos, valvetronic, and maybe even in half of this mileage, you'll replace the coolant pump or will deal with coolant leakages. Next one, the N20. With this engine, there is a critical constructional issue with the lubrication system, which could lead the engine to get stuck. Also, on this model, they combine the oil filter housing and the heat exchanger. The predictable result is cracks and leaks there. And the last and least important, fuel injectors clogging, which leads to vibrations, but it's relatively easy to fix. And speaking of the new B generation engines in this group, there is a B48. Maybe this is the only kind of a good option in this group. Here we have even less oil consumption, still some minor issues with fuel tank ventilation valve, for example, but it's cheap and easy to repair. And also keep in mind regarding this engine that there was a recall on the engine bearing. Now the group with the largest number of cylinders are 6 petrol engines, N55 and B58. The first one is a good one. Still some problems with the fuel injectors and its pump, around 100,000 kilometers. Maybe some oil consumption issues caused by the PCV valve. Maybe some regular coking problems leading to issues with hydraulic compensators, vanos, valvetronic. But the chances of this scenario are relatively less if you are using the original oil. For B58, as this engine is very, very hot, there are high chances of breakdown of the cylinder head gasket. You will definitely notice this by burning oil smell, or even visually by noticing smoke. Also on this engine, coolant leakages, floating idle caused by the direct injection, and the same rare issues and service time surprises as on B38. So, last but not least, diesel options. There are only 4-cylinder options available, N47 and B47. The early N47 is not a good option. High chance of chain elongation, around 100,000 kilometers. And the most painful part about this is that to fix it, you need to remove the engine. And also near the same number is the resource of the crankshaft damper. And if you will overheat this engine, we'll be prepared to pay for the cylinder head repair, as it will be incorrect. But even if you will uphold the normal driving style, this will not save you from the chance of swirl flaps clogging that will lead them to stuck. So, getting to the B47, the most part of these issues from its ancestor was fixed. There is only one problem with intake manifold and cylinder head channels clogging issue that could lead to your engine to be unstable. And also there was a recall on EGR valve clogging problem. So that's all the engines available. Let's get to the transmissions. Here we have the automatic and manual options, and we'll discuss only the automatic because the manual doesn't have much complaints and it's relatively easy and cheap to fix. So we are talking about ZF8HP. It could be 8HP 35, 8HP 50, 8HP 70. The last number represents the maximum torque the transmission could handle. And actually, there are 3 main points here. If you do, let's call it aggressive driving, you're starting the unpleasant consequence that the results of clutch wear will start to get into solenoids, and this will lead to transmission shocks. And if you will ignore them, the situation will escalate even further, and there is a chance to break down the lubrication pump. Also, as the transmission is made of aluminum, applying too much force could break the planetary row. And to keep in mind, to keep the right lubrication pressure, you need to replace bushes and other elastomers a bit often. That's all about the complicated parts. Let's check what do we have in other parts. Let's do them really quick. First, the leakage from doors. Just add some additional sealing here. The second, noises inside. There are many of them all around the interior, plus the doors rubbers. Next, seat slither. No idea what to do with this. And the last one inside, the climate system motor. Its bearing starts to make unpleasant noises. The solution is to take it and lubricate the problematic part. And the last part, technical equipment problems ordered by the popularity. The first is quite known steering rack fail, and what is kind of specific for this car, it's nuts problem. Next one is if you often drive a car with less than a quarter of the fuel in the tank, you'll probably burn the pump as it cools using the fuel around it. Next, the thermostat, pretty standard problem. Next, leakages from gearbox and transfer case. Just inspect the car from the bottom, regular. Suspension noises Could be caused by many elements, mostly silent blocks, bearings. Turbine actuator is actually fail of the actuator itself, just a model replacement. Ignition coils, pretty standard issue. And the last one is a battery cable. Check if it's okay near the car body joint. The final part, car interfaces. Lights could fall out, fog up, shut off. Locks on gas tank lid and doors, and also a horn. By the way, fixing it, keep in mind that the car has two horns for high and low frequencies. So that's it. I hope this overview was helpful and you'll not miss these common problems. So the next time we'll check the new G20 version of this car and let's see how it will be different.